separation from his peers, they responded by doing nothing. Nothing has happened. Nothing. No one has communicated with us. My son is still not in school. Yet the adults who did this, the racist teachers responsible for this injustice, are still in the classroom. My question to the board and the entire DVS community is simple. How are you okay with this? How does it seem that the only people upset with this are me and my family? Why is the person with the most integrity and courage throughout this entire situation a 10-year-old? I ask each and every person affiliated with this district, what kind of district do we want for our children? Are we going to stand aside and let this happen in our community? Are we going to stand up for our children and show the state and nation that we are not racist? What was this if this was your kid? My son is and is not involved in this. He is because he had the courage and conviction to stand up, and he is because he's being punished for that. He is not because this has nothing to do with him. This is about racism and discrimination and the dozens of missed opportunities to teach our kids correctly about the horrors of slavery and the stain that it is on American history, to do it correctly. None of which is the responsibility of a 10-year-old. I asked the district a question. What are you concerned with fixing? The immediate problem to my family, or the problem of racist teachers and culture that may be pervasive in our school and in our district? Is it concern that my son and family were offended, or is it concern that the district or family? Is it concern that my son and I and my family were offended, or is it concern that this was offensive? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dr. Finch, could you provide us with an update on the situation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Maria Leyva, DVEA President, Deer Valley Education Association. President Ordway, Governing Board, Superintendent Finch, and guests. I am speaking tonight on behalf of the teachers of Bel Air Elementary and faculty. Why are processes and procedures important? On December 18th, the Wednesday before winter break, a last-minute faculty meeting was announced at Bel Air Elementary, which would happen after school. At the meeting, district office leaders were there to inform the faculty and principal that Bel Air would be converting into a traditional school. One of the first of many questions was from a staff member who asked what it meant to be a traditional school. And the answer from the district office leader was to just Google it. This answer shocked most of the staff in the room and led to more questions about the new traditional curriculum, special needs students, and gifted students. Also, during the meeting, there were more questions from the faculty, and the answers from the district leaders did not appear to be well prepared. Perhaps if the proper visual aids or a plan with a timeline could have been provided during the meeting in December, then maybe the question about a traditional school would not have been necessary, and they would not have been told to just Google it. I think we can all agree that established procedures provide consistent standards, and questions about how things will be done become unnecessary. Processes and procedures help to establish consistencies that everybody involved can rely on. For 2020 and 2021, we know that there are plans to convert an Anthem Elementary School into a traditional school. We can only hope that there is a better presentation made to the faculty of the Anthem School than what was presented to the faculty of Bel Air. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to, excuse me, old business.
Okay, so that would be item
6A.
6A. I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the 3-year results-based funding loyalty payment to be paid out to the qualifying positions in February 2020.
I second.
Are there any updates on that, or is it all the same information?
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch, the information was provided in this agenda item, and essentially this is just solidifying what the board already approved back in February of 2019, so that we can make this loyalty payment, and it just further defines the process that we're going to go through to make sure who does qualify for the loyalty payment.
Okay. Are there any questions? So we will vote. All those in favor say aye. If you're
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All right, 6B.
Okay. I move that the governing board accept the recommendation to change the Boulder Creek High School Region Elementary School boundaries per the attached presentation.
I second.
Any discussion on this? Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. If you are not voting for it, say nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 6C.
Sorry for the delay.
you're fine.
I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to create the new school E31 elementary school boundary and change the adjacent elementary school boundaries per the attached presentation.
I second.
Do we have further discussion on that or clarification?
I just want to say something.
Yes, go ahead.
It's not really a discussion. I just wanted to at this point explain my vote. I did not vote in favor of this school. Miss Frank and I did not vote in favor of this school. However, I am going to vote in favor of this because the school got built, and I do support sending students to it since the school was built. But wanted to clarify, I did not vote for this school.
Okay. Are we ready to vote? If you're voting yes, aye. If you're voting against, nay, or abstention. All
Aye.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are on now 6D.
Okay, 6E was when we had the public comments.
6D.
Right, but 6E is when our next speaker wished to speak. So,
Yes.
okay.
Who's the next speaker?
Nate Miller.
Do you want to speak prior to us?
We have to do D first.
Or
Yeah,
D
we have to do
first.
D. So
Yeah.
we're on D. He was speaking at 6E. I just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure that I had
Okay.
the correct agenda item that he was wishing to speak at.
Right.
6E. Okay. All right, so we are on 6D. I
Yes.
move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to change the Deer Valley High School region boundaries, elementary school boundaries per the attached presentation.
Is there any?
I
go ahead.
second.
Any discussion? Clarification? If you're voting yes, aye. If you're voting against, nay. And if you're
This is the elementary school boundaries.
elementary school boundaries. All those in favor say aye.
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 Now we have our public speaker.
Okay, so Mr. Nate Miller, if you would please make your way to the microphone, state your name for the record.
My name is Nate Miller. The board has the ultimate responsibility as well as the accountability of the initiatives they pass. And if they do not have all the information, they cannot make well-informed decisions. In that regard, I would like to state several facts and pose some questions. During the August 13th board meeting, the following was recorded in the minutes when discussing the new elementary school, number 31. Dr. Finch reported part of the problem is that the actual residential community does not yet exist. Having hindsight as a benefit for those who voted for this new school, do you feel the information and projections presented to you, which led to the board's decision to spend over $16.5 million on a new elementary school, were accurate, or do they now seem somewhat speculative in nature? Based on an interview Mr. Migliorino gave on October 9th, 2013 to the Foothills Focus paper, this money could be used for other purposes. Or to quote Mr. Migliorino when discussing recent changes in the bond laws, and I quote, "It allows bond dollars to be used for purchases that were previously not allowed, most namely technology," end quote. What would $16.5 million in technological improvements have done for the existing schools in the district? What would it have done for Deer Valley High School? On December 9, 2019, there was an email exchange between Mr. Miglorino and Joanne Schwarting, the principal of Desert Mountain School, where she expressed concerns about how the boundary change will decrease enrollment at her school. In his response, Mr. Miglorino discussed a housing development referred to as the McEwen 48, and he said, quote, "Now I cannot say that this project will ever be built, comma, or when it will be built, comma, but the reason why we are making the boundaries this way is to accommodate for this if it does get built." Question: given the statement, are you confident that the proposed boundary changes, which will break apart families and alienate a significant voting bloc, is based on sound statistics and hard numbers and not speculation? If the high school portion of this initiative passes, I believe it will negatively affect hundreds of families. In my experience, when something like this occurs, the vote is not the end, it is only the beginning. I mean, if you guys think that we're just going to switch over to Deer Valley because you changed the boundary, I mean, we're parents. You guys, a lot of you are parents. You know that's not going to happen. This is going to do nothing to increase the attendance at Deer Valley. What will increase it is to develop programs that attract open enrolled students and other students to it. And I believe you guys can do it. But in parting, I'd like to leave you with these questions. Is the board confident they have all the information? Has the board thoroughly reviewed the numbers presented? Not just read the narrative, but actually analyzed the numbers? And if the time ever comes where you have to justify your vote, will the readily available numbers support your rationale or rip it to shreds? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead. You can read it now.
I'm sorry?
You can read
Go ahead and, okay. So I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to change the high school boundaries, including the development of the transitional plan per the attached presentation.
I second.
Do we have discussion?
I have some questions.
Who has questions?
Do you,
Okay.
Okay. So I received, I do have some questions. I received several emails from constituents with a concern about statements that Dr. Finch made at the previous meeting regarding that this didn't need to be done. It could be done later. That the only two things, and I'm not quoting you exactly, I didn't memorize the statement, that the only two things that had to be done were the new school boundaries and the original school boundaries. So could you please explain what you meant by those comments?
Sure. Yeah. I guess the best analogy would be that in those two scenarios, Bel Air being one, and then being an open enrollment situation, and the building of the new school, as Ms. Tweedy alluded, the best analogy would be that the train had left the station, and so it would be a lot of work to go backwards. We couldn't do it. That's what I meant by we have to. Those are two issues we have to do. In relationship to the changes that we're going to be voting on in a couple minutes, we've been working on this project for, well, it's been at least 5 years, probably longer than that. There's probably stuff before that as well. Working on balancing the high school enrollment. And as you know, Mr. Miglorino and Dr. Skip Brown, our consultant, is really where we got a lot of our feedback and information from. And again, he's been working on that for a while. So in particular to that question, that one was referring to the two issues that we have to move on because we have a building coming out of the ground and we're doing open enrollment with the traditional. So we have to do something about that. And Ms. Tweedy actually reiterated that. But the other parts, yes, we could kick the can down the road another a mile or two, but it would just continue to make the problem worse. I don't know if Mr. Miglorino want to add anything to that. But he could also do his presentation for you if you want him to go back through that on the numbers.
Okay. And additional question. So I do want members of the community to know I put a lot of thought into this and reading emails and so on. I actually took a vacation time today and left work early to go back and look through the presentation that was attached to see if there was something that I didn't see before, or I missed, or didn't understand. And so I do have some questions about the PowerPoint slide titled Table 23, Middle and High School Enrollment. Is it possible to put that slide up so everyone can see what I'm talking about?
Should be able to.
It's 2012/13 through 2027-28. It gives enrollment history and then projected enrollment going forward. I
page
printed
number?
off. I don't have a page number. It's just titled Table 23. It's
page 11.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed.
Yeah.
Stand by for technical difficulty.
Can we show it up there so
Yeah,
they
can we see it up on the big screen? Okay,
There's
thank
a
you.
little bit of a delay.
Yeah.
Between.
Well,
our
I'm not
slides and
tech
yours.
savvy, so, you know.
Well, it's all brand new for us,
Yeah.
too. Page 11. All right, go ahead with your question and we'll figure it
Okay.
out.
So I was looking at the projected numbers and comparing Deer Valley to Mountain Ridge. The justification for the boundary change is to balance the enrollment. And so when I hear that, what I envision is that if we have a school that's overcrowded, we're shifting enrollment to a school that has a lower enrollment to balance those numbers out. But when I looked again at the slide this afternoon and I looked at sort of the trend line in the history, in 2012-13, Deer Valley High School had 1,950. So they were well under the SFB capacity, whereas Mountain Ridge was over capacity. But if you follow those numbers across to 2019-2020, both schools have shown a decline. Well, Mountain Ridge has kind of gone up and down. Deer Valley, they've pretty much gone down. But what caught my attention was 2020-21, and going forward, the projected enrollment, and I realize just projections, shows a continuous decline. And when we go out 8 years to 20, or however many years to 20, 27, 28, there's only, according to the projections, about 100 student difference between the two schools. So I want to make sure I'm reading this right. Do those projections, are those the projections if we did nothing, if we changed no boundaries at all? Is that the point that it's estimated we would end up? Does that question make sense?
Mr. M, do you want to answer that or want me?
Yes, President Ordway, Ms. Frank, that is correct. That is the projection from the demographer if no other changes were made. I think one of the major differences between the two schools, and it's a variable that is very difficult for us to predict, is how open enrollment will change that over time. The projection, because of the choice option that exists and because of the open enrollment statute. So we get a lot of open enrollment at many of our schools, both Deer Valley High School and Mountain Ridge High School.
So when you say open enrollment, do you mean within district open enrollment or out of district open enrollment? Or are you talking about just all of the above?
All of the above.
So open enrollment is something we do have control over because we accept those applications. I'm also wondering, obviously, Arrowhead Ranch and those communities south of the 101 are landlocked. I'm not aware that there's any place for them to grow further as far as building more houses and attracting more families that way. Do these projections take into account the growth that is, we have buildings currently going up near West Wing. Do these projections take that into account?
These projections do take into the known developments, the ones that we know about.
The ones that we know about. Okay. So I'm also wondering, of course, there could be zoning changes, there could be developments that could go in up in that northwest area that we don't know about today. But I'm just wondering for the neighborhoods to the south of the 101 and even sort of the Hillcrest area, as those neighborhoods are aging out, I would assume that fewer students would come from those areas, and that might balance out the increased enrollment coming from the northwest areas. Does that make sense as well? I mean, obviously none of us have crystal balls, so we don't know. These are estimates, but we paid the demographer. I'm assuming the demographer knew, he has statistical models. These numbers are based on something.
Correct.
And I'm just,
Yep. Maricopa County is the fastest growing county in America.
No, I'm aware of that.
These are their best guesses, which may
okay.
or may not change.
But these numbers include at Mountain Ridge, even with development going to the northwest, their enrollment is still on a downward trend.
Mrs. Frank, could I ask a question that's to your point that
Sure.
I wonder if might help to clarify? Mr. Miglerino, in this particular boundary change, a lot of focus has been on the shift of students from between Deer Valley and Mountain Ridge, but there is another high school that's boundaries are also being impacted, and that would be the Sandra Day O'Connor High School, and they are going to have part of their boundary removed and shifted as well. So that also plays into the numbers, if I'm correct. Is that correct, Mr. Miglerino?
President Ordway, Ms. O'Brien, yes, that is correct. The other factor is that Mountain Ridge High School's current northern limit of its boundary is Joe Max Road. Some of the development that's happening in the northwest is north of Joe Max or outside of the Mountain Ridge High School development as it exists today.
So where are they going?
Where are they zoned for?
Those students in that northwest boundary right now are zoned for Sandra Day O'Connor. So when our district, whenever the schools were built, when Mountain Ridge came before Sandra Day O'Connor, and then the Sandra Day O'Connor school, when that area started to develop, they assigned it to Sandra Day because there was room. So that area of our school district is closer to Mountain Ridge, and that was part of the 2014 high school boundary proposed change, was to move that northwestern portion of our boundary, or of our school, our students from Sandra Day O'Connor to Mountain Ridge, and that was a decision that governing board at that time chose not to make. They left it as is. And so that's why when you look at the numbers, you can't just look at the two high schools. You have to look at all three because all three are impacted by this high school boundary change.
Ms. Tweedy?
Okay, I've researched a lot of stuff, but I just haven't been able to understand this one yet. Can you explain to me? I guess I'm not seeing here the emergency, so I don't understand. I mean, the only school that looks like is really in trouble in the future, and I don't know if this changes it, is Barry Goldwater.
President Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, so these projections are based on what the demographer believes is going to be where the students are. The most accurate number of all those numbers is likely going to be the total. Where those students reside, where they'll actually attend high school, I should say, is likely going to change. For the most part, all the growth that you see at Barry Goldwater is not being realized at Barry Goldwater High School. Many of those students are electing, and so we have a slide, I think it's the very next slide, that actually shows where the students are actually going. And so you can see, and I mean, it's hard to point this, but the I-17 insignia for just to the right of that is Norterra Canyon. They're actually zoned for Barry Goldwater, but you can see over half of those students are going to Sandra Day O'Connor. That's that shaded color that you see there. So this projection takes into account how many students we think we're going to have as the students roll up. But again, because of open enrollment and because the statute says as long as there's capacity, we accept the students. We have 235 out-of-district students at Deer Valley High School and 238 out-of-district high school students at Mountain Ridge High School. So we have a lot of, we trade students amongst our schools and amongst our adjacent schools.
But shouldn't the first priority be to the families who are in the attendance boundaries? I mean, we do have the ability to say there's no room. If there's no room, there's no room. So, I mean, yes, I understand, the economics of desiring open enrollment, particularly outside of the district. But I believe the first priority should go to the families who are living inside those attendance boundaries.
And that's how they go through open enrollment. That's open enrollment internally and externally. We rarely deny students unless we're over capacity. So it's.
But did I understand that we have students who are zoned for Barry Goldwater, a significant number who are at Sandra Day on open enrollment? Did I understand that correctly, or did I misunderstand?
Can you, one more time?
So there are students, we obviously have a capacity problem at Sandra Day. Are there a significant number of students at Sandra Day who are open enrolled and would be attending Barry Goldwater had they not open enrolled at Sandra Day?
Should be.
That is variable.
I mean, at Barry.
Her question
Yeah,
was,
so-
how many people do we have going? How many students do we have at Sandra Day O'Connor that are
Are zoned for
their home?
Barry
Their
Goldwater.
home school would have been Barry Goldwater, and I think you said 100
On that
and
chart.
something,
Yep.
right?
Yep, that was on that chart.
So there are 316
Right, thank
students at Sandra Day O'Connor that actually reside in the Barry Goldwater High School region.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that number?
316.
316. Okay, that's what I thought I heard.
Yep.
Wait, Miss Reed.
No, I was just gonna.
Okay.
I was just gonna help answer the question. That was all.
Okay, and if we're going to be doing that, when you talk about students open enrolling to not their home school, sometimes it is for a specialty program. So if we want to get a very clear number of the open enrollment, and I don't know that I actually asked this question, if you have that information somewhere, that's helpful too, to know I'm going there because of ROTC. I'm going there because of the Academy of American History. I'm going there because of culinary arts, and the list goes on. So
Yep.
open enrollment doesn't necessarily always mean that you're going because you don't want to go to the school. It's because you want to go to a school for a specific reason. But I don't think it's the majority of our open enrollment into O'Connor from both Sonoran Foothills and from Norterra.
Right. And that's the zone 2 right now. Both zones that are quote unquote exploding are north and west. So those are not done. So you could argue the Norterra Canyon, Happy Valley, that zone there is going to continue to grow. And actually on the other side by West Wing, which will eventually feed our other side, it's actually growing faster.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are, by making these decisions, we are helping to balance our high school system into the future.
So can I just make one more point and then so if we're looking that far into the future, not that far, 5 years, whatever it is. If we were to make these changes now without seeing at least permits for many of the projected new areas, we may have to do this again. We thought about that too, right?
Yes,
Or
I
not.
actually think we'll be back here specifically to deal with the Goldwater issue. As that one explodes there, I think we're going to be thinking about a new high school in the future in the next 5 years somewhere, if this continues on this pace.
But
Well, we don't know until they show up.
would we not also be then thinking about O'Connor High School and Mountain Ridge to do that again?
We think these changes. Remember, this is Dr. Skip Brown's best judgment using his software and his help in his office. That this is his best recommendations for our immediate future. This is what he's recommending as he works with Mr. Miglerino on numbers.
And then when we use the word immediate, what does that mean?
In the next 5 years, I think
5 years,
yeah.
okay.
I think this would solve our issues into the next 5 years. Again, Maricopa County is the fastest growing in the nation, so many things could happen. And actually, if you look at usually explosions that don't work with the numbers are usually economic. So it's either a collapse of the economy or for example, North Dakota, it was oil. Fracking came into business. That place took off and quadruples overnight. So it's usually those kind of variables which you cannot account for. So will November 2020 be a variable? It could be. Could the economy be a variable? Yes. But this is our best projection from Dr. Skip Brown.
So with this recommendation that will just say have a 5-year life expectancy, what issues are we solving? What issues are we hoping to solve by this?
We are trying to balance the high school enrollment that we're going after. Short version.
Yes, Ms. Tweedy.
Okay, I just want to go through a few things because I did research this and the right decision. And I will say in full disclosure, and I guess this is the part I'm just not understanding. When I said I thought we should work on boundaries, it's because I'm opposed to building new schools when we have excess capacity. So if students are residing at a school, and let me just finish with my research, I'll just tell you where I'm at on this one. And because we're not changing boundaries, we're going to be investing millions in construction. And I absolutely would make the boundary changes because I think the money needs to go to the classrooms. But I will say, and I did go through the arguments, I went through all, and I'll probably get booed on some, but I did go through and try to analyze everything. The house value, I called a realtor and I pulled a market analysis for Highland Lakes because it is zoned to Deer Valley and Arrowhead. And the middle home value in Highland Lakes is $348,579. The middle home in Arrowhead is $334,427. The average price per square foot in Highland Lakes is $168.59. The average, and I took the middle for both, and the solds is $154.15. So the home values in Highland Lakes are higher than Arrowhead. So I don't think that zoning a community to Deer Valley would hurt their home value, because as a homeowner, I wouldn't do something to someone's home I thought would hurt their value. That's why I did pull that market analysis. So that I did consider. I also looked at the thoughts people were saying in 2009, proficiency on AZ Merit was 79%. Our proficiency was 79, and then it declined. In 2009, we had Ames, not AZ Merit. So if we took everybody's 2009 scores today, every high school's declined. There wouldn't be a high school you could send your kid to. And then I did look into, is Deer Valley declining? Deer Valley's AZ Merit has improved 15% from 2016 to 2019. in ELA, and they have improved 5% roughly from 2016 to 19. So they are not a declining school in their performance by any stretch of the imagination. To the letter grades, I've studied assessment. I've studied statistics. I'm in the final stages of my PhD program, which includes a focus on cognition and instruction. It is unfortunate that the people that make the letter grade system don't understand assessment better. The letter grades would look different on all schools, and I could get into that. But you have assessments are valid to measure certain things, and then the inference you make from them are not always valid, particularly to AZ merit. It will measure the degree that somebody is proficient on the state standards, and then they attempt to measure growth with it too, but you would actually need a diagnostic assessment to measure growth. So there's all sorts of problems with that, and I understand where parents who haven't studied assessment, and I will discuss this later, I won't go on with anyone more interested. So what this comes down to for me, I would agree to change boundaries if it was because we would have to build another school. I don't think, but what I'm hearing, and this is a little bit upsetting to me because I'm looking at it both ways. We're going to change their boundaries so that Sandra Day has room to take students who don't want to go to the high school they're already zoned for. And I do have a problem with that from a fairness perspective. So I just don't think that's right. So if we have to change a boundary to prevent spending millions of dollars on schools, then I'm all for it. But I just need to understand how that's happening on what I'm looking at.
Ms. Frank.
So to that point, I've also been very outspoken since I've been on the board that we need to fill our schools that are under enrolled before we build new schools. And that's why Ms. Tweedy and I both voted no on the Union Park, the new school going in at Union Park, because there were elementary schools surrounding it that we felt could have taken those students. So just for the record, I'm very aware of the development that's going on working for the air quality department. I know how many dust permit we issues for construction. Sure. But when we talk about balancing the enrollment, I can only go by the numbers that you've given me. And I'm not seeing, if you look at Sandra Day, once you get up to 2022, 23, I'm looking at declining enrollment for those years going out. I'm not seeing, per the numbers you gave me, that student enrollment is exploding. And if you look at the total population, starting with 2012 to 13 and projecting out to the end of it's a decline. And I've tried to look at this from several points of view. I've been, as most people who were here at the last meeting know, I defended some of the very unfair comments and inaccurate comments and rude comments that were made about Deer Valley High School. I responded to 2 council members because I thought that their information was inaccurate and needed to be corrected. I don't agree with a great many of the emails that I've received. Deer Valley High School is not located in the hood or a high crime area. It is not unsafe to drive through. I'm sorry. There's no data to support that. I thought I had made up my mind how I was going to vote on this, and then again, I left work early today to take another look and see what am I missing here. I don't see numbers here that support that this particular boundary change will balance the enrollment. And I have a hard time upsetting, regardless of what I think about their opinions and how they've expressed it, I have a hard time disrupting an entire community. So, I'm trying to look at it from both points of view, and I'm looking at the numbers, and I don't see how this... I think there may be more of a risk and a negative here in the long run than a benefit.
Mrs. Breed.
I have quite a lot of thoughts and comments to make this evening. First of all, I wanted to address some of the emails that I had received and the questions and the information that was shared to me, because I don't think that there was always accurate information that was being shared amongst the community as a whole. So someone had mentioned, Deer Valley High School isn't a good high school because it ranks lower on the U.S. News and World Report's scale than Mountain Ridge High School does. And if you look at it, at first glance, it would appear that Deer Valley High School would be an inferior high school compared to Mountain Ridge. If you go in to do the research as to how U.S. News and World Reports pulls their information in order to rank those high schools, you will see that it is a truly flawed system. The 2019 rankings are based upon test scores from 2016 and 2017. So when you go back and you look at state ratings for 2016 and 2017, both Deer Valley High School and Mountain Ridge High School had a B rating for the state of Arizona. The difference is that U.S. News and World Reports gives a 30% weight to how many kids take AP classes, take a test, and pass a test. Now, I have a junior in high school, okay? I took AP classes in high school also. I did not pass a single AP test to get college credit. In my opinion, that was a waste of time for me, and that was a waste of money for my parents. So when we were planning his high school, I looked at what type of student he was, where he wanted to go to college, and I talked to my other friends who had high school juniors and seniors at that time. And what they said to me was, if your son is not planning to go to an out-of-state college, it would be, in our opinion, better interest for him to take a dual enrollment class where he gets college credit through Rio Salado, and you're saving money with college tuition, and you know that he's going to go to a junior college or an in-state college, and great, perfect. So that's what we chose to do. My son is, he's gifted, he's very intelligent, but that's a route that we chose to do with him rather than him taking AP classes. I don't think that looking at how many kids take an AP test and pass the test gives adequate weight or rating to how successful they're going to be in college or how successful they're going to be in life. And our district mission is to prepare kids for college and career readiness. My son's also in the CTE program for sports medicine. And when he graduates high school, he will be able to walk into a sports medicine facility in the private sector or at a university or college and earn $20 to $25 an hour working while he's going to school. And for us, because governing board members earn such a high wage, my son is going to have to work to help pay for college. And he's going to have to help take out student loans because the cost of college is so high right now. I'm still paying on my student loans for college. My husband is still paying on his for college and for his master's. That's the reality that we live in. So I want to make that clear that sometimes the socioeconomic status of a high school and of a family determines whether or not those kids are going to take AP classes because they get credit to go to out-of-state schools. So, looking at that system, I just want to make that clear. There was some concern about, the A rating of Mountain Ridge, and we're going to a worse school because it's a B rating as far as Deer Valley High School. And I just want to spend a couple of minutes and discuss that. I hate the school rating system because it does not accurately portray what goes on inside of a classroom or what goes on inside school gates. I have been a parent in our district for 18 years. My stepdaughter was on open enrollment. Just for transparency, we live in Sonoran Foothills. We're zoned for Berry Gold. She went to Sunset Ridge, and she did not want to go to Boulder Creek. She wanted to try a different school. She had a cousin who went to Sandra Day O'Connor. She wanted to go to high school with her cousins. So we open enrolled. At that time in the district, she had to fill out an application and write a statement as to why she wanted to go to Sandra Day O'Connor High School. And she was accepted, and we had to reapply every year at that time. So I've been around for quite some time in the district, okay? Sandra Day O'Connor has had its ups and downs as far as A and B ratings also, okay? All of our schools have. It's, my kids have had bad grades and they've had good grades. I mean, it's all dependent on performance, and it's a snapshot of a student's assessment and their performance on a single day that's captured, and then that's how everything's rated. I sent Dr. Finch an email yesterday because I'm frustrated, and I don't mean, because I was in this boat too. As a parent, we are so busy. I have 4 kids that range from 6 to almost 17. I am busy. I am running from piano classes and music and theater and sports, and I know that the majority of you guys are too, and homework and working and trying to cook dinner and trying to balance it all and keep your head above water, right? I don't expect you to know what goes on at all of the other schools and to know how great and amazing the other schools are. We have a huge district. We have so many different programs. We have so many different SES categories. We have Title I schools. We have rural schools. We have an IB schools. And we have so many different programs within each of those schools. As a governing board member, it is hard to keep up with how amazing the programs are at each of our schools. And it's easy to get stuck in a silo, right? I know everything that goes on at Sonoran Foothills because I'm there every single day dropping my kids off. I'm up. I don't know half of, before I got on the governing board, I couldn't tell you anything about Terramar or West Wing or Desert Sage. So if I had to be rezoned to one of those schools, that would be really scary for me because I wouldn't know whether or not that school was good or not, whether or not those teachers were good, whether or not that principal was good, because I only know my school. So I don't begrudge you that. I'm in the same stage of life as the majority of you are, and it is crazy and it is busy and it is overwhelming. That being said, it's our responsibility as governing board members and as the district to tout how amazing our schools and our programs are. And I think that we have drastically improved over the last 2 years with doing that, but I think that we can always be better. And tonight, if you were here before our 7 o'clock meeting started, we celebrated our A schools, and it's amazing. And every single one of those principals, I said, I'm so proud of you. What you achieved was huge. I know the hard work and the dedication that the principals and the teachers put into trying to get those. I don't agree with the rating scale, but I know how hard it is to get that A. But what I want to celebrate is the schools that doubled their test scores, that improved by 20%, that barely missed the A rating. I had teachers that are friends of mine in the district that were in tears because they got kind of the preliminary of what their letter grades were going to be. And one teacher said, if one of my kids, only one more of my students would have excelled, we would have made it. And I feel like that weighs on my shoulders. And I think that is so frustrating for teachers, and it's frustrating for parents, and it's frustrating for governing boards because it gives an inaccurate portrait of what's going on. So, that being said, I have also been in your shoes. So this whole running for school board, community advocacy thing started the same place that you are 4 years ago. I have been in your shoes. I have disagreed with things that elected officials were doing. I didn't like what was going on in my neighborhood, so I took a stand and I made my voice heard and I rallied some friends, and lo and behold, we had 8,000 people strong that made some really amazing changes happen down at the state legislature. And we've replicated that, and we've done it again and again and again. So I understand where you are. I wholeheartedly. I agree with so many of your points. I agree with so many of the district's points. And this has been a decision that's weighed heavily on my heart, that's caused me so many sleepless nights. I have tried to put on every single lens I could possibly imagine in this situation. That being said, one of the things that was mentioned was that some members in the community felt like we made a poor decision in approving Elementary School 31, that the community was not built yet, that we were building a school for houses that didn't exist, and that is, in my opinion, incorrect. One of the other hats that I wear is I sit on the North Gateway Village Planning Committee. And so I look at and also help process the rezoning requests for the community in which I live. If you were here in our January meeting, we did a work study session on the growth corridors. And one of the major growth corridors in the city of Phoenix and in the state is the I-17 Happy Valley to Carefree Highway corridor. So this past year, I approved a plan that would add 402 homes right next to Sonoran Foothills Elementary School, or Sonoran Foothills School. And those homes are in the process of being built right next to it, stone throws away. So with that, coupled with the Union Park School and coupled with a development that's going south of Happy Valley Road at 23rd Avenue, there's a lot of building that's going on, plus the McEwen 480 project. And speak to the McEwen 480 project. It's a contentious project. It's a very contentious project. And the holdup right now on that project is streets and transportation. If the city of Phoenix can work with the state land department and everybody could come together to figure out how to build a $40 million road, then that project most likely will get approved. Because the government is not in the process or in the business of telling somebody how they can or cannot use their private land. So that's what the holdup is on that. It's a big growth corridor. The West Wing area with Laura Vita is another huge growth corridor. And I know that these kids are going to need to go to school someplace. So if you look at the projected numbers of what Sonoran Foothills School, Norterra Canyon School, Esperanza, and the new Union Park School that's unnamed, Elementary School 31, or elementary, yes, you will see that within 2 years, all of those schools are almost at capacity again. And that's how it is. So I wanted to address that. I don't believe that a decision that divides a community is a positive decision. I don't. I don't believe that disenfranchising a community of students, parents, and voters does anything positive to anything that we are trying to do to make the district better. I know that we need to balance high school numbers. My son is supposed to go to Barry Goldwater. He is one of those 316 kids that is on open enrollment to Sandra Day O'Connor because of the sports medicine program. Barry Goldwater is not a bad school. Barry Goldwater is an amazing school filled with very talented and bright, amazing students, great teachers with great administration. Unfortunately, Barry Goldwater is fighting against what Barry Goldwater was like and the reputation it was. I was in high school 20 years ago. That now my friends who have high schoolers don't want to send their students to a high school that was bad when they were in high school.
Well, that was perceived as bad.
That was perceived as bad while they were in high school. So I think that we have a reputation management issue with some of our schools, that as a district, we need to start to address more. I know that we have been over the last several years as far as adding specialty programs, as far as Project Momentum and PLCs. And I think that those test scores and the overall improvement of those schools will increase. The arts programs are increasing. The sports programs are amazing. Deer Valley High School produces some of the top athletes in the state. So I know that we need to balance high schools. I also know that if I redraw lines or vote to redraw boundary lines between Deer Valley and Sandra Day O'Connor and Mountain Ridge, just because I redraw those lines doesn't mean your kids are going to go there. My kid's on open enrollment. I can't force you to go to a school that you don't want to go to or that doesn't have the program that your student wants to attend. So here's my suggestion is that I got a lot of emails saying, don't you dare do this. If you vote this way, I'm going to actively vote to not reelect you. I'm not planning to run again. So I don't care whether or not I get reelected. Some of the emails were ugly. Some of them were very respectful. And I thank you so much for the respectful emails and the conversations that we were able to have with that tone. Here's what I'm suggesting is that not only this, with writing an email and attending a meeting, but put your money where your mouth is. Do what I did. Come up with solutions to work with the district in order to provide other things. I know, Mr. Miller, you have done those. You've provided suggestions. I've asked you for some input. You've provided that. When I have asked other people who have emailed me for suggestions, they haven't even bothered to respond back. They don't want to get into the dirty details and the nitty-gritty of trying to find a solution. They just want to complain that they don't like the solution that was given. The district and the cabinet administration has spent thousands and thousands of dollars over the last year conducting this study. Our district, I don't even know how many thousands of dollars we've spent over the last decade of looking at boundaries, and then how many thousands of dollars we've spent in man hours. Everything I do for community advocacy is 100% free. It's my time, and I do it because I love it and I want to make the community better. So I'm willing to sit down and to hash out things and to try to find a different solution that helps balance out and helps improve the perception of some of the different high schools, the suggestions on what would make a high school attractive to other parents. I will totally do it. However, if I don't have parents from these regions who are opposing these boundaries that step up to do it, if my hand is not taken and we don't have these meaningful conversations, then I will call for another vote to approve these boundaries as it is. Because I don't want to do all the work by myself and be sitting up here with threats and horrible emails and people calling us names and then not have anybody that wants to step up and make it better. So that's my 2 cents.
Mrs. O'Brien.
Sorry. Thank you, President Ordway.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to thank all the my fellow board members for their thoughtful comments and analysis and for sharing the information that they found through this process. And I do want to answer, and I likewise received a lot of emails from folks, some of them very respectful, some of them also very nasty and threatening. To answer some questions that were asked tonight, do we have all the info? I do think that we have all the information that can possibly be provided without a crystal ball. Nobody has a crystal ball. Did we analyze it? I can't speak to my fellow governing board members. I think most of them have told you yes this evening. I take this job very seriously. And yes, I've been thinking about this since 2014 when the district looked at it then and proposed it. And I was in favor of it in 2014 because of how the numbers are. I think that, and unfortunately, however you feel about open enrollment, Arizona is an open enrollment state, and it changed the game for public schools that we now have to deal with. So no longer, and I was born and raised in North Phoenix. I went to Deer Valley schools when I was a child a long time ago, and I went to 3 of them because Deer Valley was in the north part of the city and it's where we were growing. And I went to double sessions and I went to a new school. I went to a school that had been there for a while. So this is the growing part we've been doing in Arizona for a lot of years. But open enrollment is a game changer. And we do have a responsibility to all of the students, not just in our district, but in the state because of Arizona open enrollment, in my opinion. And I think that when we have students in our high schools who are choosing other high schools because of program options, and there are program options at all of schools. I was recently at a meeting, not just in our high schools, but we have them at the elementary schools as well. And somebody asked Dr. Finch, why don't we have the same thing at every school? And it's because it's not possible to offer all the alternatives, all the options at every school so that we can make every student and family happy have what they want at every school. And that is because we don't have a never-ending amount of money. We have a limited resource of dollars that we, as the elected officials, must be responsible for. And to that question about did we know the school that is being built, new number 31, it is not north of Anthem, as was mentioned several times in emails. It is just to, it's on north of Happy Valley between 19th Avenue and Norterra Park. And yes, there's a neighborhood coming. And yes, in my opinion, it was the right decision to build it because if we didn't put a school there, there would be a charter school there. And that is the other changing factor in Deer Valley. So because it is our duty to all of our students in the district, it is time, in my opinion, for this governing board to vote yes on these boundary changes and take care of all of our students.
Don't fight over there. Miss Tweedy. I mean, Miss Frank, sorry.
Did you want to go first, Miss Tweedy?
Okay,
I mean,
let's
she
just
is
go.
my ride home. I don't want to upset her.
I'm going to say in the purple, go.
No, I just want to be clear here before I vote. We don't have to change these boundaries to prevent building a school. Because that would be my determining factor. I guess, and you and I might have different opinions on open enrollment. I do think, I guess my loyalty would be to the people that live in those and not into, I understand that when you attract open, it generates more money. We get paid on student enrollment. However, I would not change a boundary just to get open enrollment and put them I would do it to prevent building a new school. That's why I would do it. That's the only reason I would do it.
Yeah, you and I have had this conversation many times. And my philosophy, it's really defense or offense. And to Miss O'Brien's point, open enrollment and charters are the game in our system. And for me, the light bulb came on for me when the PhD student from Yale stopped in to Arizona and did I was at a conference. It was ASBA, and I got to listen to him. And he was talking about the factors of why there is choice. And I was so fascinated with it. He had studied Maricopa County. I went up to the speaker after, talked to him, got our numbers in his study, and he just finished his PhD a little while ago. But the number one thing he told me that made sense to me that I've not forgotten, the number one reason why people choose, number one, Number one why people choose the school they go to is convenience. I never thought of it that way. Yes, program is important, but convenience is important. It trumps programs. It trumps what the school offers. We are one of the most heavily chartered schools in all districts in all of Arizona. And we are arguably the best school district in all of Arizona. So those two don't go together. And so the fact that, in my opinion, that we need to play the game. I'm convinced that we can lower the charter numbers in our district with quality programming. We're well on that path. I'm also convinced that we need to be aggressive and offensive with our buildings and our programs to attract. Right now, we get over 1,000 students from our Peoria neighbors, and I think that's going to continue to grow. And all of our neighbors, we get a lot of students from. So that's just the game. And so, in one of the things about this boundary issue is balancing to provide more opportunities for more open enrollment as well. Because again, that's what pays the bills and pays our teachers.
Can I ask?
Yes,
add
Ms.
one thing?
O'Brien and
But
Ms. Frank.
I'm sorry. Let Ms. Fink go first.
Okay.
So I just wanted to follow up with Well, I have a couple of things. Ms. Reed's comments on the letter grades. How far away from an A was Deer Valley High School the last go round?
Here, I think 4.8 points.
0.8. So
Yep. And the year
that represents how many students' test scores?
I don't know off the top of my head, but
Okay.
pretty close. The year before, Boulder Creek and Mountain Ridge, Boulder Creek and O'Connor missed it by 1 point. So
Right.
every year, I think someone mentioned that we continuously improve. I believe that all of my schools, the entire district, will be A's in a 5-year cycle.
Right. So to the point about the concerns about the letter grade, for 9 years at Copper Creek up in Hillcrest neighborhood, high socioeconomic area, we were an A school, 1 year down to a B. And it was really based on one grade level that had 2 teachers out on serious medical issues. Everyone was shocked. The next year we went back up to an A. We didn't really do anything different in terms of, the staff change, leadership didn't change, the quality of the teaching didn't change. So those letter grades are variable. I know that's one concern that I've also heard, that I don't want my kids commingling with the kids. I've heard they crime, all of the different things. And I think what it comes down to me is, again, the numbers you've provided. I understand that we would attract students on open enrollment, and I certainly believe that students within the district who have a specific program they are pursuing, by all means, definitely at the high school, we need to be at those schools that program is offered. But in terms of emails I've received from parents saying, we bought our home in this area because of this school, I understand, because back in 2006, I bought a home in the Highland Lakes neighborhood, specifically for Highland School. I wanted my son to be able to walk to school in 6th grade. I bought an Arrowhead Ranch, and he could have gone there for 7th grade. Didn't want him across the street. I bought for that reason. I exited this district. And so I understand the concern for those parents, and I don't think we should be prioritizing enrollment out of school boundaries. Specifically, well, in any case other than the special programs and test, I thought first choice should go to the people who are those areas. And numbers on the side, they don't show me that boundary change is going to balance the enrollment. Is that the enrollment over time is going to balance out? Even if you look at the 3 schools, I do get you put the boundary just for Oaker as well. Their enrollment is still declining over as I look out. I have no comment anyone's for Deer Valley School. I've met Lane. I sent all three. It did an excellent experience. They had this excellent educational opportunity as were any other high school. So I'm not basing my vote on the misinformation and misperceptions and perceptions that some people have of high school. Make that remain. I also, we haven't even discussed the transitional plan. So I'm concerned something that's going to development before I feel comfortable voting on this. I would need to know exactly what that transition voted to approve.
Hold on one second. Transitional.
President, my board through a lot here. Yeah, providing information. This is the national channel that would offer siblings at the school that are currently attending or in the agents that would take them that school next year as part of our a lot of the leaders in the future. Anything 8th grade well would allow to continue at that current school. During one of our principals together, I'm just part of the commission and last meeting. And kind of line what that would look. We just need to work details. All the cover. I think an important bonus is that as originally and the 2008 without any even they allowed to continue at school under priority enrollment. Provide transportation to that. It would assurance would be to that high school next year. And we did lose all siblings. That can for there's one because of why the main child if we realized that you could and that would eventually through completely.
If you go over the transmission for eligible over that.
I think go pretty good, but I did to make it very good. We wanted to reflect the demand and caps over the holes and cognitive on an angle. So that's what we controls affection. Significant point is us to tolerate high school readers. So I'm going to
Maria's gonna
Okay, I believe. I believe working. So go ahead, Miss Frank. Facebook. Really?
I move that the governing board approve consent agenda items 7A through 7N.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. And I don't have my little box. I do have my little box. All right. So this is awesome. Now we're going to 8A, action item 8A.
I move that the governing board approve all employee out-of-state travel per governing board policy GCCE.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. There are no nays. Okay. 8B.
I move that the governing board accept the administration to pre-approve the addenda as presented.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, we're so quick. It's not there yet. And there she is. 8C, please.
We have
we already
done
did 8C.
8C.
Look at us. We're already ahead. 8D.
I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation of the new name for Bel Air Elementary
That's what?
as the traditional academy at Bel Air.
Just pointed it
I
out.
second.
Any discussion? Explanation? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
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 Wow. Woohoo. And look at that. We are now on 8E.
So quick, they don't even have our vote on.
Oh, there it is.
8E.
I think that's everybody.
I move that the governing board approve the administration's recommendation for position reclassification.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, look at us. Now we're at the preview. And look at Miss Moffat ready to go.
Can I just make one suggestion?
You may not. Yes, go ahead.
I have a clicker.
And I'm just gonna full transparency here.
We always expect that from you. Like from the rest of us. Go ahead.
I realize it's been a long night, and I do have a lot of opinions on this topic. Can we show it at the study session?
Which
table
topic
it,
are we
or
on?
The work session, the open enrollment preview policy.
It's
That'd
a
be-
preview, and I'd rather not mix.
Suggest that.
May I?
Yeah,
Okay.
go for it.
Okay, I just didn't know because I do have a
It's-
lot of concerns.
It's a preview,
Okay.
and I don't want to mix that with the study session that we're going to have, even though I think it's going to be a little bit related, maybe, kind of, sort of. So if you really have that many questions after she's done previewing it, then we'll just stay and listen.
It's not
Because you already have the questions. It's not like you have
it's
to
not
think
so
of
much
them.
questions
Well,
as
let's
a
let her do the
philosophical
presentation
discussion,
first.
and I would like to talk to you guys about it. But if it's a late night, it's not like that this is an emergency.
Well, let's just see what happens with
Okay.
the preview. Okay?
Okay.
Don't worry, I took tomorrow off, Darcy. We're good.
And you're not driving anyway. Go ahead.
All right. Good evening. Again, President Ordway, Governing Board Member, Superintendent Finch. We're going to be reviewing policy JFB for student open enrollment. I want to make sure that you have all of the materials that I'm going to be referencing.
We
So-
do.
Okay, you should have a copy of the recommended JFB with the markups on it. If you'll grab that document first. That's the document that we're going to walk through. So if you look at this document, what you see in front of you is the ASBA language that has been modified to mirror as best as possible our current policy.
Hold on a minute. Do you two at the end have all that out available, following, ready? Did I hand you papers?
Somebody handed me a
Awesome.
pile of papers, and this was in
All
the
right.
middle.
So I just want to make sure we've got it.
I've
Yes?
got it.
Okay.
Okay. You'll see it right in front of you on the slide. I want to make sure I cover all of these things, not to forget. The EASBA policy has been modified, as I just mentioned, and items not included in our current policy, not seen in this recommended version, have been included in a newly drafted regulation, which
Could you quickly just give us the definition or the difference between?
A policy and a regulation.
Yes, please. Oh, you're reading my mind. This is awesome, these new microphones.
So policies are adopted by the governing board, and regulations are further detail of how we will execute that policy. Regulations, though, are not adopted by the governing board and can be adjusted without going through a full policy adoption.
So your regulations are more to go back and see what you need to change to make the implementation clearer and better.
That is true.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have broken this down by category to walk you through the adjustments that we have made to the ASBA policy. If you look under the category of information and application, the only change that was made in this section is that the ASBA policy is seeking a hard deadline as though we were to do student open enrollment once a year. In the Deer Valley Unified School District, you all know we do not do open enrollment once a year. We actually review applications every single day, not only for current year, but then we go through a whole cycle for the following year. So instead, we added the word priority by December 15th, as that is what we have been practicing.
Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. In the area of capacity, the change we made here is that we combined non-resident pupils with transfer pupils. And the reason we did that is that when we review applications in our open enrollment system, our electronic system, we take applications as they come in a first come, first serve model. We treat transfer and non-resident students the same, and we don't prioritize one over the other.
And transfer you're referring to within district?
Correct.
Okay,
In
go ahead.
district transfer students versus non-resident transfer students. And that would mirror our current practice. We also, again, removed the deadline for excess capacity estimates as they remain updated throughout the entire year. And that is on our website. We make sure that those accurately reflect where we have limited capacity, full capacity, and no capacity. In the category of enrollment priorities, again, we combined resident and non-resident students.
Any questions so far? Okay, go ahead.
Under the category of admission standards on the next page, you'll see that we added suspension rather than only expulsion as a category for review when someone has applied for open enrollment. Under notification, we removed the date as enrollment, again, is open all year. We also removed notification to each location as our system does not do that, and that will also require us to contact the school of another district to notify them that we have accepted open enrollment of a student. Internally, though, I do want you to know that, of course, our schools know when a child has moved to another location and if that was done through enrollment. In the area of transportation on the next page, we only included the language that outlines transportation requirements for students that are approved for transportation on IEPs. We do not provide the transportation as outlined above that. If you see in the language, the ASBA language 2, I want to point out that it does say in everything strikeout that it's the district may do those things, whereas in special education area it says that we shall do those things. But because it's not currently in our policy, we thought it would be best to strike it out. In the area of exception, again, we combined resident and non-resident pupils. And then lastly, I did not put that on the slide. You'll see that we struck out the application submitted by because open enrollment is open all year long. Any questions regarding this document before I move into the regulation?
I'm just curious. What was the part, Dr. Finch, where we were talking about if you were going to revoke? Where's that covered?
That's in the regulation.
Going to be in the
It's
regular.
coming
Yeah,
up.
that's coming up.
It's in the regulation? Okay. But it's currently in a policy, isn't it, or no?
Yes.
Correct.
So where did you strike it from this policy? Because I don't see it striked.
We did not strike it from this policy. What you see in front of you is the ASBA version of JFB. We have taken the ASBA version and we have adjusted it to match ours. Anything that is not included in ASBA, the ASBA recommended format does not include those timelines. So we did not include it in the ASBA version and rather put it in the regulation. You are correct that our current policy, which you have, it's the third document that you have, does include the revocation timeline.
So as opposed to the timeline being in policy, the timeline's how you're previewing it. That's how it will look.
Correct.
Why was it moved from the policy to the regular? If you could explain the rationale behind that, either Dr. Finch or Mrs. Moffett.
Sure. It's been in a couple Friday updates. The number one reason is obviously the board, in my opinion, and ASBA's opinion, is that the board is at the 30,000 foot level, not at 1 foot level. What's happening administratively? That's issue number one. So that's why I wanted to start with the generic ASBA policy, because it has what they recommend, and it's run through their attorney. So anytime you put anything of that specificity in a policy, it creates an administrative problem, I guess would be the way to say it. As far as changing it, adapting it into any kind of a new challenges that come our way, of which we are now jumping into the deeper end of open enrollment soon.
Well,
Traditionals.
and then also, it's not that when regulations change that we don't see them, because we see the reason why you change it, because normally it's like a PDSA, you did it, didn't, and it needed to be revised. So if you could, read the regulations, that would be great, and then we can go backwards.
Okay, well, thank you for the initial explanation.
Go ahead.
So if you look at the regulation document, I did take some time to look at other school districts and their JFB regulation and took what was in our current JFB that is not included in ASBA's and transferred it to this document. We also considered our practice and portions of our open enrollment AMGs and included that in this document. So we'll roll through this. You'll see that the first section is the application process. This is the, outlining the basics of what the application process looks like. The details to that will be in the AMG. But if a parent were to read this, this would explain what the application process looks like. The application deadlines, this just reiterates what it is already in policy, and that's that we do have a priority deadline, but that open enrollment is accessible all year long. Enrollment after acceptance, this is not something that we have included in our policies in the past, so I thought it would be nice to add it here. This is an explanation of what the parent does need to do once they have been accepted on open enrollment. The next category is status of open enrolled students. And this outlines that all open enrolled students are just like all the resident students once they have been accepted and are accountable in the same way, and we are accountable to them. Special program admission, we added this section just to outline that we do have special programs in our district and that that you can open enroll into those programs.
I have a question real quick. So when you put that in, was another purpose to figure out if we've got people from out of district that are opening and enrolling, then we can quantify why they're there. If you put in the special program, so we would have another, it wouldn't be anecdotal, it would actually be factual.
That is true, and we do that now.
Okay.
We do have that capability now.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Next section, guidelines for revocation of open enrollment. Here is where I think governing board members were questioning. This is where I took the portion of our current JFB and put it into the regulation. I also, in bold, wrote in there that the intention, the intention is to practice no differently this entire school year, the 1920 school year. There is a goal for next year to allow for revocation rather than at the end of the year, instead back to end of grading period. So that's why that is bolded. Additionally, I want to point out that last sentence. Actually, I'd like to go up above that. There's a paragraph there that you see recommendations for revocation will be by me and will require documentation of periodic communication with the student and family, including but not limited to, as applicable, attendance contracts and records, behavior contracts and records, interventions and meetings and other communications with the student family. We do have implemented over the last 2 years a careful process and checking to make sure that the campus provided interventions for any reason why a student might need to be revoked. We also check to make sure that the parent was afforded the opportunity to voice their concern if there is a recommendation for revocation, and that be considered prior to the principal's recommendation. Dr. Finch also requested the last sentence there, and that revocations would be appealable to the superintendent. So if a parent were to disagree with that principal's recommendation, that we would have a process in place that they would be able to appeal it at the district level.
Miss Tweedy. And then Miss Reed, you go.
So my issue with this is, first, when we talk about educational equity and we say we're going to stand for educational equity, when you view, I guess, so, and we'll start with the charter. I don't think that what's offensive about charters is that parents choose schools. It's that schools choose children. You cherry pick children. And there is something offensive about that. You're taking public dollars and you're deciding who you would like to educate, who would be easy to educate. I've always worked at Title I schools, at rougher schools, and I think of my own students. And very often you won't have involved parents. You may have incarcerated parents. You may have kids with extreme behaviors. And you may have kids that have had a lot of mobility, so they have huge gaps in their education. And then to have their open enrollment revoked. See, my point is, if you're a public educator and you truly believe in public education, and I know this is popular, you have to want to deal with the concerns and the needs of all kids. And I think I had some principals reach out to me and tell me horror stories of students that they were dealing with. And I myself have dealt with horror stories. I mean, the schools I've worked at. But then I would say to them, so what are you going to do then if this kid's not open enrollment? Oh, well, then we'd have to deal with them. See, the real problem is we don't have things in place to deal with, in particular, gen ed students that have severe behaviors. Like at the K-6 schools in our district, in Deer Valley, they don't even have an on-school suspension person. So when you have a kid running amok, they're running around the campus, and so because they don't have that, it's like, well, if they're open enrolled, we can get rid of them. Well, that's great, but it doesn't work for the other kids. I mean, we need to put things in place that work for them all, but increasing students' mobility in the middle of the school year is not. like if I'm teaching algebra right now and a student leaves and goes to another school, and this happens all the time, and they go next quarter and then they just started teaching algebra and then they miss geometry that year. That's the kind of stuff that happens to kids that get moved around.
Ms. Reed?
I had two questions. Would you be able to provide in an update for us the process that you explained as far as the parental involvement in meeting with staff and administration of the school when there's a recommendation? I'd like to get more information on that and see if that's possible to have as I don't know, my brain's turned off because it's so late, but as an addenda or something so that parents understand what the process might be in case it's revoked. And I don't know. So that, and then the second, as far as the grading period in this recommendation goes, I'm assuming that for K-8 it would be at the quarter and for 9-12 it would be at the semester, correct? Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Frank.
I would just like to reiterate and agree with Ms. Tweedy's points. My belief is if we accept a student on open enrollment and we're willing to take the money that comes with that, then we have a responsibility to educate them through the year. I have personally seen the damaging effects of a child being kicked out of a school because of an issue the child couldn't control. And I would never want to see that done to someone else's kid. But I have personal experience with that. And it's awful. So I think if we take the kid because we want the money that comes along with them, then they're ours for the year. At the end of the year, if it hasn't worked out, then by all means revoke the open enrollment. But at least the child isn't being traumatized or moved around in the middle of the school year.
Yes, Ms. Reed?
To some of your concerns for my fellow board members, my hope is that as we progress down and further investigate into the futures report recommendations as far as behavior goes, that we will, as a governing board and as a district, ensure that we're providing the correct behavioral interventions for our schools so that they can properly deal with and improve behaviors, not only from kids who might be on open enrollment, but the students that live within their boundaries, because I know that is an issue when students act up and are sent out of class or have need further intervention. That not all of our schools have trained staff that are able to assess that and to take care of that in a way. And I know that at one of my students' schools, they're sent up there to hang out with the front office staff all day long. And I don't know, being a behavioralist and interventionist in my former career, I don't think that that's serving anybody well. So my hope is that as we are looking at this policy, that we're also mindful of the processes that we're going to try to improve on the behavior side and the discipline side, and ensuring that our schools are staffed properly with people that can help address those issues too.
Go ahead. Yep, that's you.
Okay, back to
Wait a
me.
minute, you were on pause. I keep forgetting we have a little bit of a lag there. Go ahead.
This is the end of the presentation, so this would be the regulation.
wow.
Yeah, that's it. So I will make sure that for the governing board, I will provide the process and the items that we review when there is a recommendation for revocation. And any other questions that you have, you can email me, and we'll make sure we include those as well.
Rationale behind that, and who was on the team possibly that did that, because we have an obligation to all of the students, whether they're open enrolled or not enrolled. But when someone is interrupting the learning, we've got to figure out how to fix that. So just going to mention that. Yes, Ms. Reed.
Sorry, I do have one more question. Could you provide me with information as to the rationale as to why we currently and moving forward, the recommendation is to include resident and transfer students all in the same category as far as approving open enrollment.
I can answer that now.
Okay.
That is our current practice. If you're to read JFB as it reads now, the third document that I gave you, they are the same. We've treated them that way as long as I have been had the oversight of open enrollment. We accept students based on capacity, and we prioritize first students that are already accepted as open enrolled students. We don't require them to reapply any longer, so they are already first priority. Then come students of our employees, and then after that are both resident or internal and external students. We see them equally in the application process.
Thank you. In having conversations with parents regarding the boundary issues, I think that one of their biggest concerns is the idea that students coming from out of district are treated the same as students that are in district. So specifically towards the Mountain Ridge Deer Valley issue, that if we chose to move forward with the boundary initiative and change it, that the students that are currently going to Mountain Ridge that would be rezoned for Deer Valley, if they wanted to open and enroll, they would be competing for a spot from a student that's out of district. And I think that if that might be looked at and considered to be tweaked a little bit, we might be able to calm some of the concerns, some of the community
That was our
members.
siblings' proposal.
Right.
So I should spell that.
Okay.
My if I add 2 cents, because I've had many conversations for 3 years now around this topic. One, I think that's everyone needs to understand is they have a home. We're talking about kids that already have a homeschool in our system, so they are choosing another school. So that's the definition of open enrollment. It's, in my opinion, I look at it just like busing. It isn't a right to ride the bus. It's a privilege to ride the bus, and we can remove you from the bus if you don't want to ride the bus properly. It's the same concept. If you want to open enroll to another school, great, but you just have to follow the rules, have to be a cooperative student, cooperative parents with the administration to maximize your potential. We know that, and to Ms. Reed's point, that we're working on the Gen Ed side on our futures report, so that'll be coming. But one thing that is different, if you're a Deer Valley student, and you are required now to go back to your home school, you're going to be on the same pace because we have an aligned curriculum. So you're going to be in that same chapter when you go next door.
And then you can throw out maybe some of the kids left their home school because it wasn't a great place for them, but that's all something that we'll get information on and have a little bit better understanding after we send our questions and our queries and get the rationales. Yes? So do we want to do something else? Yes, Mrs. O'Brien, I'm sorry. Oh, you got your notes. I'm sorry.
Okay. Mrs. Moffett, could you please provide us an update? How many open enrollments, revocations or terminated, every school year for the last 5 years, and identify which years were under this current policy as opposed to
The prior
policy. Yeah, and so that we can see the number of students this would impact. And I think that it might be important to know as well, given my fellow governing board members' concerns regarding the education of our students, how many of those students are resident students and how many are non-resident students. So if we revoke an open enrollment from Stetson Hills, but your home school is Desert Sage, you're going back within our system. Mm-hmm. But if you are from Peoria or Paradise Valley School District, your home school would be there, or whatever other choice that a parent might have via the open enrollment system, and likewise the Arizona's choice system, which includes charter schools and private schools.
Okay.
Could you provide the reason for the
Probably. I think.
Thank you.
Going back 5 years, I believe we probably could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then yeah, I'll just go with that one. Thank you.
All right. So, do we have any more lively discussion? It's only 10. It's not 10:05 yet.
It's like the good old days.
We have time. No, we're not to the good old days yet. I don't see 11.
That's true. We got to get to 11.
Don't see 11. Does somebody want to make a motion?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Do we want to talk about the future meetings that are in the bottom before we do that?
Oh,
Future meetings are posted.
Okay, now you can do it. Go ahead. Go ahead. Do it again.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
second.
Okay, good night, everyone. We all vote aye.
Aye.
Aye.